A large storm is currently impacting the United States, and it just became more concerning as we are expecting some significant severe weather over the next 48 hours across the central and southern plains, back through the Midwest, and also into the Mississippi River Valley, where significant damaging winds, large to very large hail, and a few tornadoes are possible, and even a chance for an isolated strong tornado or two will be in play. Additionally, a lot of rainfall will be coming over the next couple of days in already very saturated grounds, which will lead to the threat for significant flooding. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. And we'll begin with what's happening across the country today. And we have a mess of showers and thunderstorms currently. And this is mainly spanning from Missouri and Illinois back into Oklahoma and Arkansas. And unfortunately, with how our synoptic setup is, we are anticipating a training area of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day today in areas that desperately do not need more rainfall, including Missouri and Arkansas. So be ready for the potential for localized flooding, as a lot of rain will be falling both today and tomorrow. But our area that we need to really keep a close eye on will be back over in Texas, and this is mainly going to be during the afternoon and evening hours, in addition to Oklahoma and Arkansas, where damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes are all going to be in play. But it's going to depend on how fast all this rain activity clears out today. That's going to be our big thing that we need to watch for today. But notice how this rain is going all the way back up even into the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. This is a large area of moisture all coming from the Pacific and the Gulf, and this is going to continue to lead to a lot of rain and severe weather for the next 48 hours. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next few days, and we'll begin with today, which we have a very long and narrow area for severe weather. This is an unbelievable risk. We have a marginal threat that goes from New York all the way back into Texas. It is a very thin and narrow corridor. There's also a slight risk of severe weather in place in southern Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, south and eastern parts of Oklahoma, and a large chunk of central and north Texas. Now, I do want to throw it out there that this risk actually could be upgraded in further outlooks, so by the time you're watching this video, there actually may be an enhanced risk of severe weather in place. And if the Storm Prediction Center is to issue one by the time you're watching this video, it would likely be back over in here, mainly around Abilene and just outside of Dallas-Fort Worth, where we could have some significant hailstorms in addition to even a few tornadoes, depending on what happens this morning with our morning convection. Now, our main concern for today is going to be significant hail. We actually could easily have hail as large as the size of apples, and maybe even up to softball-sized hail out of a storm or two. So be ready for that. Protect your vehicle, bring any sort of loose line items inside, and also protect plants across Oklahoma and Texas, where there could be some scattered significant hail. Our tornado risk is a lot more elevated, mainly in southeast Oklahoma, western Arkansas, and back into north and central Texas. Be prepared for a few tornadoes in this region. It's not a slam dunk forecast here. Honestly, yesterday we had a 5% tornado risk across most of Oklahoma, and we didn't really see anything other than just some hail and wind and some scattered storms. Today's kind of the same boat here. It's going to depend on what happens here over the next few hours with our morning convection, so we should have at least somewhat of a better idea of what's going to be happening by the late morning and early afternoon. We'll definitely post updates on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Those are linked down below, or at MaxVelocityWX. But definitely be ready for the potential for a few tornadoes. This could either end up being an elevated hail day where there's just a lot of hailstorms out there, not really much of a tornado risk, or if we start to see surface-based supercells, we could definitely have even a small-scale tornado outbreak. So it's going to be kind of 50-50 what happens with today. Now, by Sunday, our risk of severe weather will be shifting to the east, and our trough is also going to be intensifying, which is going to lead to a more elevated risk of severe weather for those in Missouri, Illinois, and Arkansas, where we now have a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk of severe weather just outside of St. Louis, near Jefferson and Springfield in Missouri, and also back through Little Rock, Arkansas. And the slight risk of severe weather, including St. Louis, all the way back through Texarkana, and also near Shreveport in Louisiana. Our main concern for tomorrow will be some damaging winds, currently looking at some scattered to numerous damaging winds around 60 to 70 miles per hour, mainly in the afternoon and also early evening hours. And then in terms of our hail risk, I'm not expecting nearly as much hail for tomorrow's risk. The last few days, we've had multiple large hailstorms, both in Iowa and Nebraska. Yesterday, we had some in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. And then today, we're likely going to see a bunch of those in Texas and also southern Oklahoma. In this case, we're mostly just talking about hail up to the size of about golf balls or so. So not nearly as large, but it's definitely still something to make sure that you are prepared for. Our tornado risk for tomorrow is much more elevated across parts of central and southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, where there is now a 10% tornado risk that is in place. But do notice it is not a hatched tornado risk, which means at least for now, there is not a forecasted probability of strong tornadoes. But I wouldn't rule out a strong tornado or two. It's going to come down to our mesoscale features for tomorrow. tomorrow, and I personally do think there will at least be a low-end chance for a strong tornado if we have supercells that are able to mature in this environment. But nonetheless, at least a few tornadoes are likely tomorrow, anywhere from St. Louis and northern Missouri all the way back over into northeast Texas, and even in eastern Oklahoma around Fort Smith, Arkansas as well. Now let's go through the timing of the severe weather event, beginning with what's happening today, and I'm going to begin with our significant tornado parameter values, and this is a big question mark once again for today. We do have a boundary that is in place, and if any supercells are able to stay along or east of this boundary, we could end up seeing a more significant tornado risk take place in Texas. So we need to keep a very close eye on our supercells that try to fire off during the mid to late afternoon hours today. Eventually, by the late afternoon and early evening, we still have a very favorable environment for tornadoes, but it's going to be contingent again on supercells firing near that boundary. We could even see an isolated storm or two after sunset form near the Red River, and if that's able to happen, there could also be an elevated tornado risk in that area. So definitely a day that we want to make sure that you are staying weather aware in both Texas and southern Oklahoma. Though it's not a guarantee that we're going to see tornadoes, the environment is definitely ripe for at least a few tornadoes if we see surface-based convection. By the late evening and overnight hours, the tornado risk will start to decrease, but we will still have a localized tornado risk, I think, in North Texas, even during the late evening and early overnight hours, but it's going to, again, be contingent on whatever happens with our supercells during the afternoon hours. Now let's talk more about the timing of severe weather, beginning with what's happening out there this morning, and there's already a lot of morning convection, and this is what's going to stabilize the atmosphere to some extent throughout the morning hours. But as we go into the afternoon, we should start to see some breaks in the clouds, and as long as that happens, we'll see some supercells fire off during the early to mid-afternoon hours, really starting around 3 o'clock or so, back over near Abilene, Texas, and also through Wichita Falls, where large hail, damaging winds, and a tornado risk will start to increase. This is by 4 o'clock, and notice that we have a bunch of storms back over here near Abilene, and these are going to be producing, again, hail and wind initially, and if these storms can stay in the warm and moist air, they could easily produce a tornado threat in the late afternoon. By around 6 to 7 o'clock, these storms are still, for the most part, in the same exact area, right around Abilene, Texas, and just south there of Wichita Falls. We will likely start to see at least a few storms try to fire up around or just after sunset in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is a much more conditional risk, though, of actually happening. We're not entirely sure if storms are going to fire there near Dallas-Fort Worth, but we do think there will at least be storms that fire back over in the Abilene area and also near Wichita Falls this afternoon and evening. But we'll eventually see storms at some point there around Dallas-Fort Worth. It might take some time, though. If those don't fire off, our storm threat will increase as we go into the late evening and overnight hours, where a line of thunderstorms will try to develop, maybe a couple different segments, and then eventually by tomorrow morning, things start to clear out in this area, and we're just talking about some scattered showers during the morning, and then this eventually leads into our significant severe weather threat as we go into Sunday. So heading into tomorrow, our tornado risk is not really going to increase until very late morning and early afternoon hours on Sunday, primarily in eastern Oklahoma, southwest Missouri, and northwestern Arkansas out of the storms that will begin to develop right around lunchtime. And by the early to mid-afternoon hours, notice how our favorable environment for tornadoes will be lifting further to the north and east. So I do think our more elevated chance for a few tornadoes will be in central and southern Missouri. For the time being, this does not appear as if we're going to see many strong tornadoes unless, again, our storms are able to be mature enough and also tall enough in height. Overall, our environment is favorable, though, for at least a few tornadoes, given the amount of wind shear that's going to be available in this environment during the afternoon hours tomorrow. It's also going to come down to our storm mode. If we have more discrete supercells, it's going to be much easier for us to see a tornado risk. If it's a bit more clustered together, which right now looks more like that, it'll be a little bit harder for these storms to separate and also produce a more elevated threat for tornadoes. Nonetheless, the environment throughout the afternoon hours tomorrow, fairly favorable for tornadoes. This should continue into the early evening hours in central and western parts of Illinois before this eventually tapers off as we go into the late evening and early overnight hours across the Midwest. So here's the timing. Heading into Sunday, we will actually have some showers and thunderstorms out there even in the morning hours, but that shouldn't be a big problem in this particular environment. It will stabilize the atmosphere to some extent, but we will eventually start to see reinitiation of supercells during the early afternoon hours, anywhere from just south of Kansas City all the way back into northeast Texas. Notice how it's a pretty messy setup. Again, a lot of storms all embedded in this singular area, which is going to make it hard, again, for these storms to really stay separated. If they're clustered together like this, I think our tornado risk is going to be much more embedded just, again, in these supercells that are all connecting to each other. Basically, semi-discrete storms here during the early to mid-afternoon hours. Eventually, by 4 to 5 o'clock, they could become a bit more separated, and this could allow for a slightly more elevated tornado risk, especially in central and southern Missouri, anywhere from about Springfield back through Jefferson. Also, notice further down to the south, our storms are also pretty messy in Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. This is by no means really what we saw even just about a week or two ago back in the first week of April, but nonetheless, there is obviously a risk of severe weather here, so make sure that you're staying weather aware. I think Arkansas, probably a tornado or two. If you're back over in Texas and Louisiana, maybe an isolated tornado. I still think our most elevated tornado risk will end up being in Missouri. Eventually, by around 5, 6, 7 o'clock, these storms will continue to push east, more clustered together by the time they get closer to St. Louis, with damaging winds being the main concern, but a few embedded tornadoes in this cluster of thunderstorms will also be a possibility. But again, these showers and thunderstorms that we're going to see in the morning are once again going to have a big factor in terms of how much severe weather we see and how significant it is as well. We could easily see a couple of strong tornadoes if we don't have a whole lot of convection in the morning, which would again allow for more separated supercells. So we'll have to keep a very close eye on tomorrow. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates. We'll likely be live today and tomorrow covering severe weather as long as storms do initiate and as long as we do at least have some level of a tornado risk. Now, in terms of our severe weather beyond today and tomorrow, things become a lot more uncertain by the middle of this week. I do think they'll have a bit of a quieter stretch of weather as we go into Monday and Tuesday. Only a few scattered showers and thunderstorms left over from Monday from this big storm system that is bringing severe weather this weekend and flooding rainfall. But I do think we are going to see the return of severe storms by Wednesday and Thursday. This is not going to be anything super organized, but we could definitely see some damaging winds, hail, and even a couple of tornadoes on really any given day. From Wednesday all the way through the weekend, you'll notice that these storms just continue, mainly in the southern plains, but even some in the central plains. By the late weekend and early the following week, things become a lot more uncertain, but I do think we are eventually going to see the return of at least some sort of large-scale low-pressure system. Exactly when that happens, we don't really know, but it's going to be a while, I think, until we see a more organized severe weather outbreak or even tornado outbreak. It's actually a bit quiet here for the middle and end of April. Despite us having severe weather days, we don't have anything at least significant currently in the forecast, pending any changes to today or tomorrow's forecast. So definitely an interesting little trend here, but nonetheless, don't forget that we are currently right in the midst of the peak of severe weather season here, both in April and May, and we could definitely see things change as we get closer to the end of April and as well as we go into May. And as a friendly reminder, there will be a lot of rainfall out of this event over the next couple of days. We are expecting a large swath of 3 to 6 inches of rainfall from North Texas into southern and central Missouri, and areas like Missouri and Arkansas do not need more rainfall, and unfortunately, more rain is coming for these areas. So turn around, don't drown on the roadways, be safe out there, and if you're in a low-lying area, definitely stay aware of this situation that's going to be evolving. Elsewhere, we are still talking about 1 to 3 inches of rain for most of the Midwest and also through the southern plains over the next 3 to 5 days. And as a reminder, we will likely be live later today, if not tomorrow, for severe weather coverage, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified if and when we do go live.